Okay, well, welcome, dear listeners and watchers, to an episode of the Global Advocate Career Podcast. And within the umbrella of my podcast, I'm doing some series here and there, talking to different people. And today, I'm bringing back for a series called Navigating the New Normal in the Workplace. I'm bringing back Mr. Len Adams, the CEO of Acg Resources, to discuss the various topics related to the workplace. Len, welcome again to the
Thank you.
Advocate Career Podcast.
Delighted to be here with you, Michelle.
It's great to
You are
have
the ultimate host.
Thank
Hostess,
you.
I should say.
Well, thank you very, very much. Excuse me as I adjust my necklace because I don't want it to fall off during the interview. Len, how are you? How's your family?
I am well.
How's everything
Everyone
going?
is well. Thank goodness
Okay.
everything is well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. For those who are first-time listeners or watchers, can you tell us a little bit about Acg Resources?
Sure. ACG is a recruiting, search, and staffing firm that I founded in 2002 after having worked for someone else for many years. We are a family-owned business, so I have my adult, I hate to call them kids, but they're my adult kids in the business with me, as well as a phenomenal team of people that have been with me for many years. They're all very committed. Maybe they should be committed for working for me, but no, they're great people, and we have a really wonderful team. We provide executive search services, mid-level recruiting, and temporary staffing to a multitude of industries.
All right, so you're playing a very important role in these days, particularly with helping individuals secure positions, look for new opportunities. Yes. So that's why we're having you come back and talk about your thoughts on various topics. Today,
sure.
The topic is how being laid off can turn you on to a better career. It's a sobering topic, and the reality is that as the pandemic continues, some jobs and sectors altogether are disappearing. Wouldn't you say, Len?
That's an interesting topic, which you hit me with 3 minutes ago. So I'll extemporaneously try to come up with some thoughts on it. That is a very sobering topic, and it could be very frightening for people when they're put in that position. And I'm going to go back to my background in a minute, but let me just talk about it for a moment in terms of for the listeners. You're married, you have a family, you have a house, you have a mortgage, you have rent, you have cars, you have tuitions, and your boss comes in and says, sorry, I'm laying you off in the next 2 weeks. You're done. Here's your severance. You're out of it. And you immediately go into panic mode and say, oh my God, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck or, money is tight. And it's frightening for most people. And what most people, or a lot of people do, they immediately go into panic mode and they don't know what to do. I agree with you that it can be life-changing on a positive, okay? Because when we think about all of our lives, what happens? We go to school, we come out of school, we get a job, okay? It's a career that we maybe like, kind of like, or maybe we fall into it because then, we have responsibilities. And, as you progress in your life, you have all these responsibilities, and maybe you're not quite happy with your job, but what do? It's hard to make a move into another industry and just walk away from something. So sometimes getting laid off can be a blessing in disguise, and it may not seem it at the time,
right?
But it may sometimes allow you to step back, take a breather, take a deep breath, and say, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? And, I'm sure there are countless stories out there of people that have gone through that and turned it into something else by saying, okay, what skills do I really have? What do I really want to do? And how can I transition that into something else or my own business or something? And not to make it too personal, but 18 years ago, I was not laid off, but I was in a situation where I needed to leave where I was, okay, for a number of reasons. And I was, in my 40s and had, a wife, 3 kids, tuitions, mortgage, car payments, and all the things that went with it. And I walked away. So I wasn't laid off. I walked away with no severance, nothing, and said, okay, I'm going to do something else. Now, I was fortunate. I decided to stay in the same business,
Right.
uh, but took me a while to build it up. But for me, that catalyst, which caused me to want to make that move, was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I was stuck with a company and in a job that I'd been at for many, many years, wasn't being treated well, and finally came to a point where I had to leave, and I never looked back. And I will tell you, the first probably 3 to 4 months were the scariest thing in my
Yes.
life. And I can only tell you, I had a call with someone the day after I resigned. And now, bear in mind, when I resigned, I had no plan.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea whether I was going to stay in the business or do something else. I just knew I couldn't stay there. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine the next day, and I called him up and I said, for the first time since I'm 14 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to do, nowhere to go, no plan, and no income. And he said, how do you feel? I said, I feel great. I said, which means I'm either having a nervous breakdown or I'm really ready to succeed. And this friend of mine said to me, no, you're ready to succeed. And you know what? It allowed me to really take stock and have a perspective of what I wanted to do. And then, I had serious discussions with my wife and my family about what our plan was going to be. And the decision was to stay in the industry, but just do something on my own. And, I went into debt to do it. And, but thankfully it all worked out fine. But, not having the pressure of the day-to-day responsibilities at work that I had, it allowed me to step out.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, it was scary. It was very, very scary. And I always tell, not to digress, but I always tell the story about my son brought home a stray cat,
Mm-hmm.
and someone said to me, "You got to bring that cat to the vet." And I brought the cat to the vet, and it was like a $500 bill.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, $500. I don't know how I'm paying the mortgage this month. I'm going to pay for this cat. But we called it our lucky cat because we had it taken care of, and we had that cat for a lot of years. And my son always said, that cat brought you good luck. So, I invested in the cat instead of the mortgage that month. But anyway,
And you
um,
and I'm glad that you mentioned that, Len, because one of the reasons what motivated me to do this series is because I myself can relate to being let go from a position unexpectedly, okay? And
mhm.
having to deal with the disappointment and getting back up and motivating myself. And you mentioned the family. Yes, family has to be very supportive. And I just want to say, no one is, how can I say, belittling the circumstances of uncertainty when you come across a surprise of not having a position. My goal is to inform those to have a better perspective because it's worked for me and it's worked for you. I didn't know your story, and I hear it from other people as well, right? What drove you, Len, to leave that job, right? And say, I'm going to succeed. What drove you? Share that with our listeners.
Uh, well, there were a lot of things going on with the company that I won't get into, but it was just a situation that I knew I had to leave. I knew it was time. I was there for a long time, and it was just the time was right. The time was right, and it was wrong. Okay, and I say that
Mm-hmm.
because at that time in my life, I had one child in college, one child in high school, one child in grammar school, so I had tuitions. I didn't have a lot of money because of the circumstances of the company I was with. So it was probably the worst time to do it. It
Right.
was 2002. The country was starting to head towards recession. Okay. So it was really the worst time, but I believed in myself. Okay. And I was very fortunate because my wife and kids believed in me, and they said, no, you could do this. And as I said, it was the most frightening thing, but sometimes fear is the greatest motivator in the world because
Yes.
you have to do it. And when I did this, I had no safety net. Okay. It was a second mortgage on my house and I remember telling my wife, if we fail, you know, we're done. We're going back to an apartment. The house is finished. I said, if we do well, we'll do well. And she said, you're going to do well. I believe in you. So, having that support system is very important. So anyone who gets laid off, you've got to have a very frank discussion with your family and say, okay, I know it's terrible I got laid off, but there's the old saying, this too shall pass. It will pass. You have to believe in yourself and believe in your skills, and really look deep within. And that's what makes people, is when they look deep within and say, okay, I could do this, and you'll get through it. Okay. And even if you have debt and you have bills, you know what? You negotiate with everyone. You work out payment plans, whatever. Okay. Just don't ignore the payments, but you'll get through it, and people will be respectful of that if you're taking positive steps. Now, it may be going into business. That's not for everybody. It may be making a career change into a different industry, or it may be just finding a better company that won't lay you off, right? Regardless of situations. So,
Yes.
you have to really look hard. And, I always say this, and I know, we're geared to the career seeker. Okay. Looking for a job is a
That's
full-time
right.
job.
That's right.
Okay.
So let's go straight to it, because we got 30 minutes and I want to
Okay.
pack a lot
I
in.
know.
Looking for a job is a full-time job. I say that all the time. Now, I just want to go back to mindset for a minute. The term unemployment really is touted a lot, particularly in this country.
Mhm.
I feel that when someone considers himself unemployed, I feel it's manifesting a negative connotation. There are different ways to say that you're between jobs. You can say you're transitioning into another career. You can say,
Absolutely.
right? What are your thoughts about that? Because that really ends up showing when someone gives you their resume and when you talk to someone, their mindset. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's really more internal. Okay, and I'll tell you, 25 years ago, if someone was unemployed, oh my God, it was a tragedy.
That's
You
right.
know, people used to get dressed and go on the train and make believe they were going to work, not to let their neighbors know. And now, over the last 15, 20 years or so, there's not a stigma anymore, because it's affected everyone. I remember, I've done a lot of talks at outplacement firms and schools and whatnot, and years and years ago, when I would say, how many people here know someone unemployed,
Hmm.
only one or two hands would go up. Then when I started doing it, going into, 15 years ago and 10 years ago, everybody had a relative or a family member or themselves that was unemployed at some point in their career. Okay, so where it used to be, we call the womb to tomb. You got a job and you
Right.
graduated and you retired, or you stayed for 10 years or 20 years. Now people stay 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, whatever, and there's no stigma anymore. So, transitioning is fine, and it's not a negative thing. Things happen. People leave jobs, people get divorced, people move on. So, that's society today. So if people in their own mind don't take it as a negative, oh my God, I'm unemployed. It's I'm transitioning. I'm moving on from that situation to the next one. And the next one will maybe be better. And if it's not, you move on to the next one after that. Okay. Everything is an experience. Life is a journey.
That's right. That's right, Len. And let's look at the landscape of what it's looking like globally, right?
Hmm.
In Europe, they're experiencing, particularly in France, according to the Wall Street Journal, they're experiencing a high youth unemployment rate. In Latin America, America is dealing with the worst downfall ever, particularly in countries like Argentina, Brazil, Chile. In the US is no different, particularly just recently in New York City, the mayor may very well lay off 22,000 municipal workers.
Hmm.
So it's happening across the globe, whether due to the pandemic. What would be some suggestions you'd have for someone who is now confronted with this scenario and is looking for a new opportunity? What would you suggest are the best steps that they could take right
Well, the typical steps that we give every job seeker:
now? Mm-hmm.
take a deep breath,
Yes.
don't panic,
Yes.
sit down, and
Mm-hmm.
make a plan. What are my skills? What do I like to do? What do I not like to do? And how can I now turn this opportunity into a real opportunity and find something else and do something with my skills? And look, it may not happen overnight. It may take some time, particularly in the environment we're in. And, it is a difficult environment. But I'm going to tell you the good news. It's not the first time we've been in this environment, and everyone knows it passes, right? We're in an election cycle, which has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
We have a pandemic, which has a lot to do with it, but it'll all pass. It will all pass. Okay. And, maybe, the old saying, we're all going to take our lumps a bit for a few months, as we
Mhm.
have for the last 6 months, but we'll get through it if you stay strong and stay focused. And, we went back to looking for a job as a full-time job. You get up every morning, you have your plan, and, you have to develop a very, very, very thick skin, because
Yes.
rejection is difficult. But, I learned in being in this business, because let's face it, we're out there looking for positions for people and trying to find opportunities. Every no gets us closer to a yes, right? And, I always remember when I was cold calling 100 years ago, they used to say to me, you have to get through 20 no's to get to a yes.
Yeah.
And when I would be making cold calls, when I got the 19th no,
Mhm.
I would say to them, that's fantastic. And they say, why? I say, because the next one's going to be a yes. And people would think I was crazy. But, I had that attitude because to me, I made fun. I had fun with it. And I didn't let the rejection get to me, and I still don't. It's difficult. It's been a very difficult 6 months. I'm not going to lie to you. We've managed, we've survived. March, April, and May were horrendous, but
Yes, it was quite challenging.
we got through it. I told my team, we'll get through this. We take a deep breath. We reach out to people, let them know we're here. Couldn't sell in March, April, and May. It was very difficult because who wanted to talk to us on the client side? Who wanted to talk to us about hiring? Not too many people. But we got through it. And you know what? Things are getting better, at least on our side. And we're seeing opportunities and we're seeing jobs coming in. And, we're getting the fruits of our labor from just staying in touch with people and reaching out to people. So, it's a journey. And, I know it's easy to say that when you're working, okay, but you have to believe it. You really have to believe it. You get through it,
I agree. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that this is temporary and that it's not permanent, and it is the mindset. I agree. I agree. Okay, so now you believe in yourself and you're ready to. The person's like, okay, I'm gung ho. What sort of what sectors? You gave us some insight in our previous discussions. You told us about the industries that you see have taken a hit. What sort of sectors do you see um, have staying power? Which ones have staying power?
Well, certainly the healthcare field
Yeah.
has staying power. Insurance, believe it or not, because that industry, people don't drop insurance, right? So the industry as a whole, people still have health insurance, life
Mm-hmm.
insurance,
Mm-hmm.
property insurance. So the industry, excuse me, while they may take a bit of a hit on claims, there's still activity in that industry. The tech field in educational tech, which we're very bullish on, because I think given what's going on now, that's going to be continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Financial services, the certain sectors of it will continue because people still need to do something with their money, right? Um, I'm trying to think what else, and we're seeing the food industry is still relatively hot because people have to eat. Okay, the liquor industry should still stay pretty hot, right?
And we hope
Drink more.
so.
People drink more. They need to drink more.
Yes, yes, I hope so.
Yeah. I'm a little bit concerned about the real estate industry and
Mm.
the hospitality and travel and restaurants. I think those industries are going to take a big hit. But I wanted to go back to
Yes,
the
please.
person that's newly unemployed and what do they
Mm-hmm.
do. And, I've seen articles about this and postings, and I want to comment on it. If you have to take something short term just to get yourself through, even if it's way beneath your skills or if it's a temporary job, do it. Get some income. Take the pressure off. Okay. If you have to deliver for Uber or something, okay, you do what you have to do to survive. All right. Again, not to make it personal. When I first started my business 18 years ago, I remember getting a call from an educational institution. They wanted me to write a press release. I said, sure, why not? Okay.
There you
Because,
go.
and money's money. So, I took it and I said, okay, I made a couple of bucks. Okay, and I wasn't a writer, but they saw some of the stuff I had done, and
Right.
they said, we think you could do this, and I said, okay, I could do it. And that things like that got me through. I took almost anything just to survive.
I think
And
that's a great suggestion, Len. I really
yeah,
think that's
so
a great suggestion, because you know what? You never know how in one of those jobs can get you
they
to the one that you want. Life is interesting, right, Len?
Well, I have a statement. I don't know if you could see it behind my desk. People, especially with temporary jobs, they go, "Oh, I don't want a temporary job."
Mm.
And I tell them every job is a temporary job. You just got laid off. Okay. And I also say life is a temporary assignment. Nothing is permanent. So, take it. And I can't tell you how many times in the last 25, 30 years, I've seen people go into a temporary position and it turns out that they become part of the furniture and they really like the work they do, and before you know it, they get hired. So it's never say no, never say never, and never say no. Okay, to anything that's reasonable, even if again it's less money. People say, well, I was making X. Yeah, well, the key word in that sentence is I was
Was
making.
past
Right now
tense.
you're not making anything, so get in somewhere. It's another set of social skills that you're building up. It's another set of people that you're meeting, and you never know where the supervisor you're working for now has a friend or a brother or a brother-in-law in another company, and he says, hey, you know what, this guy's pretty good, or this gal is pretty good. I think you should talk to him or her. Okay, and it turns into another opportunity for you. So
That's
you have
right.
to look at everything.
I agree,
I tell people,
Len.
I'll talk to anybody. You never know. I
I,
always say, I
I
never know what it's going. Look, you and I,
Hey,
right?
you and I, Glenn, remember when I cold called you and you were very
Absolutely.
receptive? This is important, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. Thank you for mentioning. That's an excellent point, Len. Taking a job that you may feel very well, oh, that's beneath me, or that's not in my skill set. No, I've done it myself. There are some
Absolutely.
temporary positions that I've taken that I'm like, this is an insight into what it's like to work here. I'm not doing it. Other opportunities have opened the door to then permanent position. I'll say a longer term position, because as you say,
Right.
nothing is permanent. So yes, I would say to the listener and to the watcher, absolutely embrace a new opportunity, where keeping in mind, right? We're not recommending that you take something that's going to make you miserable,
Right.
right? Do what resonates with you, but also be comfortable of getting out of your comfort zone, right, Len?
Right. Absolutely. And you know what? Even if it does make you miserable, when the bill collectors are coming to the door and you have a
Oh,
rent to pay or a mortgage to pay, sometimes you have to do things that make
you're
you
right.
miserable, right?
You're
You pay
right,
the
Len.
bills, and again, you look at it as this is a short-term solution to my long-term problem, okay? And maybe it takes a little bit of pressure off of you, and even if you did something at night or you took something part-time, just to get some money. And well, unfortunately, with the economy today, I was going to say, even becoming an Uber driver or
Mm,
something, just to get yourself out there to make a couple of bucks. With the gig economy, there's so many things people could do. They could put their skills up on what is it, Fiverr, Fever,
yes,
that
right.
okay, or
Fiverr, yeah.
TaskRabbit or any of those. If you have skills, and you never know how that you may turn that into a business. So again, you have to think outside. I hate to use that term, think outside the box, but you do have to think outside the box and say, okay, how do I get through this? All right, and that's how. Look, that's how I run my business. We always sit down and say, okay, what else could we do?
What
How could we
else?
pivot? What we did 2 years ago may not be the same as what we're going to do tomorrow with certain clients or with new clients, but we try.
That's right, Len. And I, as a career coach, I tell my clients, you're in the driver's seat. It may not feel like you're in the driver's seat, but when you make a proactive or perhaps an inactive step towards your career, you're making the decision. So,
Absolutely.
so embrace the fact. It's funny that you use the analogy of the Uber driver, because you are in the driver's seat, right? You make the determinations of what you want.
And sometimes people may feel they're in the driver's seat, but they're in a self-driving car. So, you have to think that
Oh, explain that. Expand on that.
where the car is driving itself. So,
So,
where
oh,
you're out
right.
of control,
You're
you're
out
not,
of right, right, right,
all
right,
right?
right,
But
right.
that's okay too, because you're
It's
taking the
okay.
journey, right?
Go with the
Look,
flow.
when you go on the roller coaster, you're not driving it, but you're believing that it's going to go up and go down, and and the ride is going to end. That's life.
That's a great analogy. Mind you, I haven't been on a roller coaster in a while, but
Me neither.
so
Nor
okay,
do I intend to.
yeah, well, so, but for those who like to live on the edge, I think it's fantastic. Right, we've got about 3-4 minutes left. If someone wants to reach out to ACG, right, and they're like, oh, my resume is not up to date, or I don't know. Well, you could reach out to a career coach, Michelle Clark-Seary,
Absolutely. Yes.
right?
Who does a great job.
Thank you. However, for someone who wants to reach out to you, Lynn, what would you say would be the first best step they could make?
They could reach us certainly by phone, 212-566-7600. We have our website is acgresources.com. We have a mobile app, ACG Jobs, which is available on Google Play and the Apple Store. And that app has a lot of career advice and links to our podcasts with Michelle, as well as online, real-time job postings. So as every time a job comes in, it goes right on the mobile app and gets pushed out to anybody who's registered. And certainly my email, lenadams@acgresources.com. So you could find us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're all over the place.
That's
Twitter.
fantastic. That's fantastic, Len. And so next week, Len, I wanted to surprise you today, but I won't do it for next week. Next week, we're going to talk about.
No, surprise me.
Oh, I'll surprise. Okay, great.
Yeah, surprise me. I like it.
This is
That's why I don't overthink it.
Yeah. That's key. Don't overthink things. Go with it. Do it like we're doing here, dear listeners and dear watchers. Okay, Len. Thanks so much. I'm so excited about this series that we're doing for the month of September. Too. It's exciting. Hope everyone who's listening is learning from it or making them think in a different way. That's the whole goal of this, so that we grow and learn and flourish. Thank you, dear listeners. Thank you, dear watchers. Len, don't go away. Let me just press stop record. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.